Jugganath, he has two appearances. And often you'll see this in Krishna's pastimes, that there's more than one appearance, like Radharani has more than one appearance. And sometimes you'll see that pastimes, there can be differences in details and variations. And this is because the Lord's pastimes are constantly going on. So, Shravanam and Kirtanam, chanting and hearing, leads to us remembering. So by hearing all these pastimes, it gives us something to think about. So it gives us a way to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So once upon a time, back in Satya Yuga, Lord Jugganath is actually the oldest deity, and the Rath Festival is one of the oldest festivals. So back in Satya Yuga, King Indradyumna, he wanted to offer worship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he was a king doing his kingly duties, and he didn't always get time to worship the deity. So one day, a pilgrim came and told him about this beautiful form of Nila Madhava. And so King Indradyumna, just by hearing about this form of Nila Madhava, thought, I must go see this deity. So he sent his assistant out, Vidyapati, to go find this deity. And then Vidyapati, he searches long and wide trying to find this deity. And one day, up on Nilachala Hill, he sees a community of lower caste people, pig farmers, known as Sabaras. And he stops in there. And what happens is he meets the chief and he falls in love with the chief's daughter, and they get married. But he notices that every night, his father-in-law is kind of disappearing and then coming back next day. So he asks his wife where his father-in-law is going. And she tells him, he's going to worship the deity of Nila Madhava. And Vidyapati thought, this is it. And so he says, tell your father, take me with him. And she said, no, I can't do that. Nobody ever goes with him. So he begs her, please tell him. And she says, okay, yes. So she convinces her father to take Vidyapati with him to worship Nila Madhava. And he agrees only on one condition, that Vidyapati goes blindfolded, so he can't see the path. But he's always thinking 2 steps ahead, so he takes some mustard seeds with him. And that night, when he goes with his father-in-law to worship the deity, he drops mustard seeds along the way. So they grow into plants and he can find his way back. And when he gets up there and his father-in-law is worshiping the deity, he notices a bird lands on this branch and falls into the lake near this deity. And immediately when this bird falls into this lake, it sprouts a 4-armed form and is liberated, and it goes to Vaikuntha. And Vidyapati thought, I want to be liberated. So he goes and he tries to jump into the river, the lake, and then the Lord speaks to him. No. You have to go back and tell King Indradyumna where I am about my appearance. And at the same time, the deity Nila Madhava tells Vidyapati's father-in-law, you've been worshiping me very nicely with these simple flowers and simple fruits. The worship was very simple, but I desire to be worshipped by King Indradyumna. And hearing this, he becomes very distressed because he's very attached to Nila Madhava. So he arrests he bounds his son-in-law up so his son-in-law can't leave to go tell the king about the deity. But what happens is that Vidyapati's wife convinces her father, okay, please let my husband go. It will be all right. And so finally, he lets him go, and Vidyapati escapes to go back to King Indradyumna. And he tells King Indradyumna about the beauty of Nila Madhava. And King Indradyumna is so enthusiastic. And he thought, let's go to the deity. And then they get there, and the deity's disappeared. They travel all this way, and they can't find the deity. And King Indradyumna is so distressed, the deity's gone. And the community there, before, they're also distressed because Nila Madhava has disappeared. And then you have to buy everybody sweets now. So then, after what happens, After that, what happens is that Narada Muni, he comes and he says, don't worry. This is a part of the Lord's arrangement. Narada Muni is always interrupting things, telling people what's going on, what's about to happen. So our transcendental spaceman tells King Arjuna, don't worry. The Lord has desired this. For the first half of Lord Brahma's life, he'll be as Nila Madhava. And for the second half, he'll appear as Lord Jugganath in the form of a wood, Daru wood. And so he tells King Indradyumna, okay, you have to go down to the sea and find this wood. And also, you have to establish a temple for the Lord up on the hill. So King Indradyumna, what he first does is he builds the temple, gets everybody together, and temple's built. And then he goes down to the ocean and he finds the wood Lord Jugganath's going to be carved out of. And it has those 4 symbols, this, club, conch, and lotus. And he takes that, gets that wood out. And then he thought, okay, the temple's here. We got the wood here. Okay, I need to go get Lord Brahma so he can give his blessings to the temple and so he can install the deity. That's his idea. So he goes up to Lord Brahma. But what always happens when someone goes up to Lord Brahma? The time on Lord Brahma's place, it goes by a lot faster than what happens here on Earth. So he goes up to Lord Brahma, and while he's hanging out with Lord Brahma tells him, this place, Jugganath Puri, Purushottam Dham, it's established by the Lord's own internal potency. I'm actually, I can't install anything here, but I'll come and I'll put my, flag on top of the temple. But you should also know that since you've been here, several generations have passed, and the temple's been covered over by sand, but it's been dug out by the current king. So they go down. They go back down to earth. But what happens is that the current king tries to claim, no, I built the temple. But then Lord Brahma comes and establishes, no, this temple was actually built by King Indradyumna. And then he tells King Indradyumna, okay, we got to get someone to carve the deity out of this wood. So King Indradyumna gets the best, Vishvakarma. And Vishvakarma agrees to carve this deity as long as he's not interrupted. So King Indradyumna agrees, and Vishvakarma begins his work carving these deities. But time's going on, and King Indradyumna is so enthusiastic to see the Lord. He can't wait. He's kind of getting impatient. And then one day all the noise stops. And he's thinking, what's going on? And then a week goes by, 2 weeks go by. And he's thinking, oh man, maybe something happened to him. He's, I haven't heard anything in a while. And finally he gets so anxious that he just opens the door. Vishvakarma's gone. But you have these 3 beautiful forms, Jugganath, Baladeva, Subhadra. But then he examines them and he realizes there's no hands. There's no feet. The deity's incomplete. Oh my God, I've done something. I shouldn't have done this. And he's feeling really bad. But then that night, Lord Jugganath comes to him in a dream and says, no, this whole thing was actually arranged by my Leela. Because I want to show the world that I can accept everything with no hands. I can go everywhere with no feet. But if you like, sometime you may put hands and feet on me and to decorate me. And so you'll see sometimes in Puri, if you look at the deity during certain times, they put hands on Lord Jugganath. Anyway, so the deity, that's basically the appearance of Lord Jugganath. And what happens, we don't have time to tell the whole story because I want to get to other points, is that eventually King Indradyumna holds the very first Ratha Yatra with Lord Brahma present and everybody there. So that's the first one. And then the second one's a little more internal. It helps you understand Lord Jugganath's mood a little better. Is that when Krishna left Vrindavan and he went to Dwarka, he was always feeling separation from the gopis. Everything changed. He stopped playing the flute. He was no longer herding the cows. He was having to act like a Kshatriya. But, in his heart, he was always thinking Vrindavan, always thinking of the gopis, always wanting to be in their association. But he had other duties to do in Dwarka. So one day, everybody goes and they meet up in the area of Kurukshetra for the eclipse. And in this very holy place is where Krishna, for the first time after many, many years, he sees the gopis, he sees his family, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan and all the inhabitants of Dwarka. They're all in the same place together. So Krishna's wives, the queens, taking advantage of this, They go and they talk to Rohini, because Rohini saw Krishna growing up from the time he was a small boy. And they're telling Rohini, can you tell us about when Krishna was a child? We notice at night, he's calling out to these gopis, calling out to Radha, can you tell us, about what happened in Vrindavan? Rohini says, yes, I can tell you, but we need to make sure that Krishna and Balaram don't hear, because, then they would feel too much separation and things. So they get Subhadra to guard the entrance. And so Subhadra's guarding the entrance. She says, don't worry, I'll make sure they don't come. So Rohini starts narrating these pastimes of Krishna's childhood, killing Putana, killing Trinavarta, lifting Govardhan Hill, the Rasa dance, everything. And as she's narrating these things, the queens are just so absorbed in hearing these pastimes. And Subhadra, she starts getting very absorbed too. And she forgets what's going on. And she forgets that she's supposed to be guarding because she's so into hearing these pastimes about Krishna. And then Krishna and Balaram, they come up behind her. She doesn't realize it. And then they start hearing. And when they start hearing, all three of them start going into ecstasy. And this ecstasy, their limbs shrink up and they assume these big ecstatic smiles on their face. And then they take these forms of Jugganath, Baladeva, and Subhadra. Very, very ecstatic forms. So in this mood, Lord Jugganath, he's very, very happy because he's thinking of the love of his devotees. But you see also he's kind of opulent if you look at Jugganath. So he's in the opulence of Dwarka. So with Lord Jugganath, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get Dwarka, but you get the mood of Vrindavan. So in this mood, Lord Jugganath is very merciful. He doesn't take many offenses because he's thinking of just how much he loves his devotees. And so while they're in these forms, Narada Muni comes by again. And he sees these forms of Jugganath, Baladeva, and Subhadra. And he says, oh, wow, these are the most merciful forms. Promise me you'll show these forms to the whole entire world. And Krishna agrees. So this is the second pastime of the Lord's appearance as Lord Jugganath. And so I would like to also get into, while we have some time, I wish I had about 2 hours for this class, but I don't. So I would like to get into 5 aspects of Lord Jugganath's mercy. So one is his Ratha Yatra. It's said often when people want to see God, they come to a temple. When people are sick, they go to a doctor. But you have people out there in the world that are so materially diseased, they don't know they need to come to a temple. They don't have a desire to come to a temple. And maybe you have people out there that are so sick that they can't go to the doctor. So back in the day, the doctor used to make house calls to come see the patient. So what makes Lord Jugganath so amazing and so unique is that he is the only deity to actually go out of the temple and see the whole world, regardless of whether or not they want to come see him. He goes out and he gives his mercy to everyone. You don't see that with Radha Krishna. Generally once you install the deity in the temple, the deity stays. The deity is not supposed to be moved except for special considerations. And then also with Gornitai, in Mayapur, sometimes they bring the Gornitai deities out, but this isn't Mayapur. But with Lord Jugganath, the amazing thing about Lord Jugganath is he will come out of the temple and he'll see everyone. He'll give everyone his mercy. I don't care if you want to come see me, I'm coming to get you. So therefore, everyone gets the benefit of seeing Lord Jugganath. Regardless of caste, regardless of creed, regardless of color, this is the one time of the year that everybody gets to see the Lord. So this is one aspect of his mercy. The second is his eyes. You see Lord Jugganath, he has very, very big eyes. And you notice with the Krishna, like with the Madhava, his eyes are like oval shaped like this. So Lord Jugganath, with his very, very big eyes, he's known as Lord Jugganath, Lord of the universe. So with these very, very big eyes, he sees everything. He doesn't miss anything. And how do we know this? Because he has no eyelids. You see Lord Jugganath, he never blinks. So he's always able to have darshan of his devotees. His very, very big lotus eyes. It is often said, with Lord Jugganath's lotus eyes, he sees everything that's going on. And then the third aspect, Mahaprasad. They say in Vrindavan, you get the mercy by rolling in the dust. In Mayapur, you get the mercy by bathing in the Ganga. And in Puri, you get the mercy by eating up to your eyeballs. This Mahaprasadam is so wonderful. Everybody takes this. And in fact, it's so pure that it is said that a Brahmana could take the Mahaprasad of Lord Jugganath from a dog's mouth and it would not be contaminated. So this Mahaprasadam, there's a reason of how it is. There's a reason for why it is so famous and also how it appeared. So once upon a time, Lakshmi Devi is serving Vishnu. And then, when she gets done serving him, she gives him his food, and then he eats, and he goes and he takes rest. And then later Narada Muni comes, and Narada Muni starts serving Lakshmi Devi because he wants to render some service. And so this goes on for a few days, and Narada Muni is very nicely serving Lakshmi Devi. And so Lakshmi Devi, being the kind devotee she is, she asks Narada Muni, "Can I give you a benediction, Narada? You've been serving me so nicely." Narada says, "I only want one thing." She said, "What is that? I'll give it to you. I want your husband's remnants." See, we take Mahaprasadam kind of for granted here sometimes in Kali Yuga, but actually Mahaprasadam is a great thing to get, the prasadam of the Lord. And it's not always easily attained. So Lakshmi Devi tells Narada, he maybe always promised not to give his remnants. And Narada Muni says, "Well, that's the only thing I want. If you can't give me that, I don't want any other benediction." So Lakshmi Devi is thinking, "Oh, okay, well, I have to think of something." So the next day, she's massaging Vishnu's feet. And then he's noticing that Lakshmi, she's not looking as happy as she's usually looking. And then later she's serving him, his food. And he's noticing, something's wrong here. So he asks her, "You seem a little bit morose today. What's going on?" And Lakshmi says, "Narada Muni, he's been serving me nicely. I offered him his benediction. And all he wants is your remnants. And you made me promise not to give your remnants to anyone. So I don't know what to do." So Lord Vishnu says, "Take my remnants when I'm not looking." So when he looks the other way, she snatches the plate and she takes it to Narada. And he is so happy. He immediately, one gulp, finished. And then that Mahaprasadam causes him to start dancing in ecstasy, playing his veena, and he goes all the way up to Mount Kailash to see Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva sees Narada Muni and says, "Narada, you were always in ecstasy, but today you are especially happy. Tell me what happened. Why are you so happy today?" Narada Muni says, "Lord Shiva, you're not going to believe this. I just got Vishnu's remnants." "Oh, really? We are always chanting and dancing together. Let me have some." Narada said, I don't have any left." He said, "You must have something. Check your hands. I already washed my hands." He said, "Check really good." And he looked underneath his fingernail. There was 1 grain of rice. Lord Shiva says, "That'll do." And Lord Shiva takes the grain of rice, he eats it, and then he starts dancing in ecstasy. But when Lord Shiva starts dancing, that's when the universal destruction starts happening. So seeing this going on, we were like, "Why is Lord Shiva dancing? It's not time yet." And so they bring his wife in, and his wife's like, "Lord Shiva, what are you doing? Why are you dancing? It's not time for the universal devastation." Lord Shiva says, "I just got Mahaprasadam from Lord Vishnu." And she says, "Oh, awesome. Where's my half?" He said, "I don't have any. I just got 1 grain of rice from Narada." So 1 grain of rice can be broken into 2. You didn't save me any. He said, "Well, you have to be especially fortunate to get the Maha of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And maybe, today's not your day. I do all the yagas with you. I do all the meditations with you. I do all the austerities. How are you more fortunate than me?" And then she starts to become very angry. So angry that the three planetary systems start heating up. People are getting nervous because they're like, Parvati, your children are, you're going to kill your children. Like, what are you doing? And because, when the Lord creates, he creates through Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva and Parvati, they're the mother and father of all living entities. So then they get Lord Vishnu. He comes on the scene. He says, Parvati, just calm down. I will give you my whole plate. Every time you can have my remnants. You'll be all right. She said, no. This is not good enough. I don't just want your remnants. I want all my children to have your remnants. And Lord Vishnu, he was thinking, okay, 2 plates, Kartikeya, Ganesh. But no. She meant all living entities, because all the conditioned souls in the material world are her children. So he said, okay, don't worry. I will appear as Jugganath in Nilatchala. And you will stay right next to me. So in Jugganath Puri, they had the Jugganath temple, and then right next to that they had the temple of Bimala Devi. This is Lord Shiva's wife. And so whenever they offer the prasadam to Jugganath, they then take to this temple, and then it's offered to her, and then it's distributed everywhere else. So you will stay close to me, but because Lord Shiva, because he offended you, he will have to stay outside. So Lord Shiva stays around, and Parvati, and then Parvati, her deity, she's right there next to Lord Jugganath, Baladeva, Subhadra, and Puri. So this is why everybody, regardless of caste, regardless of creed, they get Lord Jugganath's prasadam. Parvati has made it so that everyone gets the Lord's remnants. So next time you take the Lord's remnants, you can thank the wife of Lord Shiva for this. So the fourth aspect is that Lord Jugganath, he can be embraced by everyone and served by everyone. So Lord Jugganath actually, he's worshipped by what's considered a lower caste in India. And once, sorry, my phone's recording me, I don't know why. Okay, and then once Ramanujra, he went to Puri, and he saw that these, people of the lower caste were worshiping Lord Jugganath. And he wanted to make things more pakka. He wanted to have very nice brahmanas. And he had some influence with the king. So he goes and he meets with the king, and he says, okay, these are kind of like, the ways in which the deity should actually be worshipped. And he gives him all these different, rules, and, and what caste the pujari should be from, etc. And the king's listening, and the king says, okay, good point, we'll do it. So the next morning, the king goes to the temple, and he's waiting to, establish these new rules. And Ramanujra doesn't show up. And nobody can find Ramanujra. And they found him in South India. It turned out later that day that Lord Jugganath, hearing about this, he came to Ramanujra. He said, do not mess with my worship. And he kicked them out of Puri. And so, therefore, they kept the worship the same. And Lord Jugganath, he can be embraced by everyone. Actually, people can go up on the cart and they can embrace Lord Jugganath. There's a certain time during the Rath Yatra, especially in Puri, that everyone, regardless of their caste, regardless of their creed, they can go up and embrace the deity. And Lord Jugganath was the first installed deity within ISKCON. Sometimes they don't want to let non-Hindus, well, actually, all the time, they don't want to let non-Hindus into the temple in Puri. They have this thing. But when Srila Prabhupada came, the first deity that came was Lord Jugganath, because Lord Jugganath can't be kept inside doors. And so we all know the story that Malati found Jugganath deity shop. She stole it. And in America, we're not even Sudras. We're way, way outside. We're like, outside the Varnashram system. Still, Lord Jugganath came. And there's a very, very sweet paragraph here that I'll read about the installation of Lord Jugganath in ISKCON. This is Malati speaking. She said, after Lord Jugganath appeared in the temple, there was a simple installation ceremony. The room was quite tall, and the altar was a high platform with a canopy over it that Shamasundar had constructed at Prabhupada's request. And as an added touch, there were some lights. Prabhupada said there must be lights. So we put flashers in the light bulbs. So the light bulbs blinked on and off. Srila Prabhupada liked these flashing lights on the deities. We didn't dress them, as Prabhupada hadn't explained that to us yet. They were up there as they are. Srila Prabhupada said, now you must offer food to them. They must have their own plate, and nobody else should eat from that plate. You see, nobody knew anything at this time. This was the beginning of deity worship in ISKCON. For the installation ceremony, we simply put them on the altar, closed the curtain, opened it, and everybody took turns offering a brass tray with a candle on it by circling it before the deities while someone rang a bell. We didn't even know to touch the flame to our head, but that was the installation of Lord Jugganath. So, Jai! So you see, Lord Jugganath came. He even came to the last scene. People don't even know how to properly worship the deity, don't even know what deity worship is, but yet Lord Jugganath came and he gave his mercy. And by that mercy, because the devotees worshiped him sincerely, and Prabhupada told them this. He said, if you worship Jugganath with all sincerity, he will reveal, how to worship him. And we see that the devotees, they followed Prabhupada's instructions, and gradually they became more and more Paka-trained pujaris. But Lord Jugganath came, and he accepted that type of worship from people that, were just learning that you're supposed to bathe after passing stool. So just see how wonderful Lord Jugganath's mercy is. So that's the fourth aspect. And then the fifth aspect is his leelas. So there's three parts. There's Sanskrit terms for these, but I won't go into that. So there's leelas where he's purifying the false ego. Leelas where he's acting as Patita and Pavana. And leelas where he's giving his pleasure to the devotees. So which one do you want to hear first? Purifying the ego. We can all right. Okay, purifying the ego. And there's two stories I'll tell in this regard. One takes place in Puri and one takes place in Rajpur. So one time this wealthy businessman, he went to see Lord Jugganath in Puri. And this was back when the Muslims were ruling and everything. And he was thinking, oh, I have all this money. I'm going to give a donation to the temple. So he goes and he says, I want to give a donation of 100,000 rupees to the Lord. And this was like so long ago. So it's worth so much more than it is now. And he said, on the condition that you have to spend it all in one day. And at that time, that would have been quite hard. Because, maybe to buy fruits, mangoes like a couple cents, things like that. So they thought, how can we spend this all in one day? Flowers are like this much, mangoes are like, this is a lot of money to spend in one day. He said, if you don't spend it one day, I will take it all back. So they went and they talked to Lord Jugganath that night when they were putting Lord Jugganath to sleep. Sorry, Lord Jugganath's letter. Lord Jugganath, this very, very puffed up businessman has come, and he wants to give 100,000 rupees, but he says we have to spend it all in one day. We're not sure how to do this. And later in a dream, Jugganath came to that pujari and said, tell this man I want one betel leaf pine. He was saying, betel, that's even cheaper than a mango. And he said, tell them though that I want it crushed with the jewel from the head of an elephant. Because there's a belief that of like 1 in 1 million or some astronomical number elephant has a jewel in their head, which is why sometimes like hunters, they'll unnecessarily kill elephants because they're looking for this jewel. So at this time, to get this jewel, very, very expensive, more than what he was going to give a donation. So they said, okay, we'll tell him. So the next day he comes back and he's thinking, oh yes, how are they going to tell me, how they're going to spend this money? And the pujari tells the businessman, okay, Jugganath says he wants one betel leaf. And the wealthy businessman says, what? 1 betel leaf, that's nothing, But he wants the jewel from the head of an elephant crushed in. And, to get this, you can see why it's very rare. First of all, it's very rare to find. And then, they don't unnecessarily kill the animals. So they have to wait till the elephant dies of natural causes and then check. He said, but that's like, I don't have that money. I don't have enough money to sponsor one of those jewels. They're so rare. And he said, well, that's what he wants. And so by then the businessman couldn't understand, okay, I've been humbled by Lord Jugganath. So Lord Jugganath crushed his false ego, and then he went and he paid his obeisances to the Pujari, to the deities, and said, oh, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. And then there's another one, more recent time, which I'll tell. And this one's also important, and then I'll tell the one in Rajpur as well. So I think it was back in the 70s. I heard this one on Puri Perkama. It might have been at a different time, but this was a more modern pastime involving Lord Jugganath. And so the person that had taken charge of the government there, they wanted to put Lord Jugganath's Rath Yatra on a more stricter schedule. Because, anyone who's done a Rath Yatra, they know sometimes things don't always go on schedule. They don't always go according to plan. The Rath cart will stop, or, you can't get the deities up there, something. So he said, now we're going to institute this. Okay, Lord Baladev will come out at this time, Subhadra will come out at this time, Jugganath will come out at this time, Rath will start at this time, it'll end at this time, because this is taking way too long. And everybody said, oh, no, this is not a very good idea. You can't put Jugganath's Rath Yatra on the schedule. It's the Lord's Rath. So anyway, the Rath Yatra came, and so Lord Bala came out, Subhadra came out, everything's going according to plan. Oh my God, the Lord's cooperating. Jugganath came out, gets to the cart, can't lift the Lord. Won't move. They bring so many men, come help us lift the deity. The deity won't move. They think to take a rope and kind of pull him up. They do everything. The deity won't move. So as time's going on, the Rath hasn't started. Oh my God, so much inauspicious activity will fall upon us if we don't start this Rath Yatra. 10 o'clock's coming, 11 o'clock's coming, 12 o'clock's coming, 1 o'clock's coming. And then, so the son of the king of Puri, he comes, he pays his obeisances to Lord Jugganath, he's offering Boga, he's offering Gila, please Lord, please get on your Rath Yatra cart so we can start this Rath Yatra. If we don't start this Rath Yatra, this will be very, very bad for us. We have to have your Rath Yatra. And then the time's going, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Rath Yatra hasn't started. So then finally, they say, who had this idea? It's a government official. Bring him. See, Lord Jugganath won't get on the Rath cart. And seeing this, he realizes, okay, this was supposed to be the quickest Rath Yatra ever. Now it's turning into the longest. My Lord, I'm very sorry for trying to put your Rath Yatra on the schedule. Please, get on your cart, and I won't do this anymore. Pays his obeisances, offers some boga, very, very humbled. And then the Lord gets on the Rath cart, and then finally they're able to get going. Longest Rath Yatra in history. Everybody's waiting. That was a true story. I can't remember what year it took place. And so this is an example of Lord Jugganath, humbling the false ego. So he can do this. He can humble the false ego. But then also, there was one story I wanted to tell about Rajpur. Okay, so, the Jugganath deities in Rajpur, they're also very old, about 500 years old. And ISKCON now has that property. So there were some Brahmanas there that came along, and they thought, why is Lord Jugganath being worshipped, by these people? They should be worshipped, by real Brahmanas. He was thinking the same. I don't want to say the exact same thing as Ramanuja, but maybe kind of like on a similar train of thought. And so they decided that they were going to take Jugganath. And so they grab Jugganath and they pull him off the altar. They do this at night. And they're taking him across the fields. And they have to stop and decide to stop and go to the bathroom. So they set Jugganath down. They go off in the field. They go to the bathroom. They, wash up. They come back. They can't lift Jugganath. They try and try and try. He won't move. So then finally they had to go back and tell the devotees, we tried to take your deity. We're very sorry. He's out in the field. You can go get him. He won't come with us. So then therefore, they went out in the field and they got Lord Jugganath and they brought him back. So this is Lord Jugganath humbling. And then also next, okay, Lord Jugganath is Patita Pavana. So, hold on 1 second, let me grab some water. Lord Jugganath, always saving his devotees, rescuing his devotees. So once there was a king of Puri named Ramachandra Dev. And so this was also during the time when the Mughals or the Muslims were ruling. So one time the king of Delhi attacked the temple. And Ramachandra Dev tried to defend, but he lost. So the system was at that time that, one king had to basically become the servant of the other if he lost. So the king of Delhi was thinking that he wanted the wealth from Puri. So he decided, okay, Ramachandra Dev, you marry my sister. So then therefore we'll be related. And Ramachandra was thinking, I can't marry your sister because if I marry your sister, I'll become a Muslim. If I become a Muslim, then they won't, let me into the temple. I go into the temple every day. And he said, well, you have to marry my sister, and if you don't, I will destroy the temple of Lord Jugganath, and I will destroy the deities and everything. So he's thinking, okay, what do I do? And he's put in jail. And that night, the sister comes, and she says, I think you should marry me. And he said, well, I can't, they won't let me back into the temple. And then, I already have a wife. I already have some queens, so, I can't take another wife. She said, no, don't worry. She said, actually, my mother's Hindu. We're devotees of Lord Jugganath. She was forced into a marriage to a Muslim. And he said, just marry me and try to save Lord Jugganath. Do it this way. So finally, she was able to convince him to marry her. And they get married. But when they get married, the people back in Puri, because back then there was no WhatsApp, there was no Facebook. You couldn't call people to explain what's going on. They thought he had married her out of lust only. So they said, what are you doing? You married this Muslim woman. You already have several wives. Now you're a Muslim. We're not letting you go see Lord Jugganath. And, they were very harsh to him. And in fact, there's this ceremony where they offer Gilam of the temple for the king's protection. They stopped all that. They said, you can die. We don't care. And he was so morose because he could no longer go see the Lord. But then one night he goes to the gates and Lord Jugganath comes off the altar, runs to the Simhadwar gate for him and stands right there. And he's able to offer garlands and flowers and things like this and then goes back. And the pujaris are noticing when they go in, oh, there's these flowers on the floor, what's going on? And there's somebody, and how did this get here? And then they found out from Lord Jugganath, he said, I'm going to the Simhadwar gates to see my devotee, since he can't come in to see me. So to this day, they say if you go there, there's Patina Pavana Jugganath outside the temple, so that everybody gets to see Jugganath and it's at the same gate. So then that's how the Patina Pavana Jugganath came about. And so Lord Jugganath, if you don't let his devotee come in to see him, he comes out and sees his devotee. He always saves his devotee in this way. And then there's another story that there was this devotee of Lord Jugganath, and Lord Jugganath told him, I want some mangoes. And he said, okay, I'll get you some mangoes. He said, no, I want you to steal them from this house. What do you mean you want to steal them? I can buy them. Yes, but it's more fun if you steal them. And so he said, I will. And so that night, the devotee goes and he, goes into this house, and it's the house of this like a king, and he's going to get the mangoes, and he gets caught. Okay, we're gonna put you in jail for stealing. He said, oh, but these mangoes, they're for Lord Jugganath. Okay, they're for Lord Jugganath. You can go. And then he brings the mangoes to Lord Jugganath. Lord Jugganath eats the mangoes. He's very happy, but then a couple days later, the devotee gets very sick. And he's no longer able to offer worship to Lord Jugganath. And he's in the bed. It's described he was so sick, he couldn't even get up to pass urinary stool. And one morning, he wakes up, and he sees Lord Jugganath is cleaning him. And he says, "My Lord, you could send so many people to do this. Why are you doing it yourself?" He said, "Yes, I could. And I could also take away this sickness from you. But I want you to burn off any remaining material attachment you have in this world. So at the end of your life, you can come back with me to my abode." And so in that way, Lord Jagannath took care of him. And then gradually, at the end of his life, he went back to the Lord's abode. And then there's another story where this very, very pious Brahmana, he's very poor, didn't have a lot of money for doing his deity worship, and his family was suffering. Can't remember his name because I don't have my books, because I gave my books to Nikunja to keep for me while I was gone. So I wasn't able to check my books to get all the names, to get all this right. But anyway, the Brahmana was very poor, and he couldn't really afford to feed his family. So his wife said, "Why don't you, do something? Like, don't you have some friends that can help us out?" He said, "I have one friend actually over in Purushottam, and if we go see him, he will take care of us." And so they go. She said, "Okay, let's go see him." So they travel all day and night to get to Lord Jugganath. She doesn't know that's where they're going. And then they stop, and then they get very tired, and they decide to rest. They're outside the temple. And so the Brahmana, he wakes up, and he sees this young boy come and give him a plate for prashad. He wakes his family up. They all eat. And then the next day, the Bhacharis come into the temple, and they're looking for Lord Jagannath's plate. They can't find it. Outside, they see the Brahmana with this plate. They say, "You stole it." He said, No, I didn't steal it." And they put him in jail. And then later, that night, Lord Jugganath comes to the king in a dream and says, "That person is my great devotee. You must let him go. Otherwise, I won't let you come see me anymore. I'll disappear from you." So then the king, realizing this, he goes and he frees the devotee, and he gives him very nice accommodation. So you see, no matter what condition one is in, Lord Jugganath always saves. There's even another story about one devotee, her Guru Maharaj, her husband's Guru Maharaj were coming to visit, and they didn't have money to cook a feast for him. So she decides that she's going to go sell her bangles. Usually when women marry in India, the parents give some gold so that they can sell it if they're in financial difficulty. So she goes and sells her gold. But the merchant said, the person at the shop, he says, "Actually, I don't want this in exchange for this rice and things. I only want one thing." And he's very attracted to her. And she says, "Well, what's that?" He says, "I want to spend the night with you." She says, "Oh my God, like I'm a chaste woman, like this is ludicrous." She goes back and she tells her husband, what the deal is. He says, "Well, we have to cook a meal for Gurudev. Like we can't, you have to go through with it." So then later the guy comes from the shop, and he comes all dressed very nicely. And the one was waiting in the room. He says, "Yeah, my wife's in there." He's very kind of defeated, but he doesn't really have a choice. He goes in there. He runs out immediately. He says, "I am very sorry. I have offended you. I will go now." The guy said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I went in there, and I can see that she's sitting on the lap of Lord Jugganath." So Lord Jugganath saved her. There are so many stories. I don't have time to tell, but I want to get to the third aspect, and that is Lord Jugganath always gives pleasure to the devotees. So it's described that the pure devotees, they can see Lord Jugganath everywhere, and they can see really Krishna. Krishna can be seen everywhere. And so when you look at Lord Jugganath's eyes, what colors do you see? Red, white, black. Yeah. So one day this devotee, he was hearing all day about the glories of Lord Jugganath, and he started to develop this attraction. So then one night he goes home, and he's He takes darshan of Lord Jugganath first, and he goes into kind of like this ecstasy, seeing Lord Jugganath for the first time, and then he goes home to his wife. He's very tired. He's about to fall asleep, so she makes him some prasadam first before he goes to sleep. And like typical Indian style, she does red plate, big hump kilo white rice, and a little spinach on top. And the spinach is dark because it was a little old, so it's black. So he looks at this, he sees the black, he sees the white, he sees the red. He says, "Oh my gosh, it's the eyes of my Lord." And so we see that this is the Lord's mercy, Lord Jugganath, that he allows his devotees to see and think of him everywhere. And so then all of a sudden he comes and he's so exhausted, he's so tired. Then he gets rejuvenated. He gets so much energy seeing this and thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is how the pure devotees are. It says when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he sees Lord Jugganath, he is seeing the form of Shama Sundar. So Lord Jugganath in this way, he's always giving pleasure to his devotees. I remember one time I was in the Atlanta Rath Yatra, and I got lost. And we couldn't find the Rath cart because I had gotten delayed with some services. So I ran to catch up. And I'm running all around, and I can't find the Rath cart. Which way is it? Which way is this? You're asking people, have you seen a big cart with some deity? all sorts of things. And then I'm about to give up. And I'm like, okay, Lord Jugganath, I'm just not pious enough to see you this Rath Yatra. Maybe I just don't get your mercy this time. And I turn around to head back to the temple. Rath cart comes over the hill. At that exact moment. And I'm so tired. I'm so fatigued. I feel like my legs are about to fall off. Rath cart comes over the hill. All of a sudden, I got all this energy. I don't know where it came from. And I ran with the Rath cart. It was on its way back to the temple, which was quite a walk. And all of a sudden, I got so much energy just seeing this Rath cart that I started running back with it. And I'm like extremely thirsty because I didn't have any water with me. And at that moment, somebody comes up and they're like, "Do you want some water?" And they're opening it up, they're pouring it in my mouth. So Lord Jugganath fulfilling all the desires. But I had to get to the point where I was like, "Okay, Lord Jugganath, maybe I'm just not going to see you." And then he appeared. And then I used to ride on the Rath cart for the Florida Rath Yatras. And one time I was getting on the cart, and I had to get in the back, so I had to go around the deities. But in this particular cart, the area was so small that I wasn't going to be able to fit through. I'm like, I can't fit through there. And I was going to try. And there was this much space between the little edge of the cart and Baladev. And so when I go to see if I can get through there, I kid you not, the deity, the space expanded. And I easily got through there. And somebody watching, they were like, "Oh my God, it's like that. It's almost like that deity moved for you." So Lord Jugganath's mercy is amazing in that way. He gives his mercy to so many people. Before I was a devotee, even before I knew I wanted to follow this, I went to my first Rath Yatra, and they told me, they say, "You're going to ride on the cart with the deity." So I got to ride on the cart with the deity. Wasn't even really vegetarian. Wasn't even really practicing anything. But got Lord Jugganath's mercy. And just by getting that mercy, I was able to take this process of Krishna consciousness. So when you go out on Rath Yatra today, it is like the perfect preaching. People get darshan of the deity, they're getting prasadam, and there's books there, right? There's going to be books? Yes. And they're getting books. And the holy name. So you get everything in one. And this Rath Yatra, it makes devotees, it changes people's life. They get that darshan of the Lord. So Lord Jugganath is wanting to give his mercy to everyone. So therefore, we're facilitating, we are helping Lord Jugganath in his mission, as Patina Pavana, to deliver all the fallen conditioned souls and bring them back to him. You will see, people become devotees off of these things. So think of that when you go out there Rath Yatra. Not only are we benefiting ourselves, but we're benefiting everyone else. And simultaneously, as we pull the rope, we're pulling Lord Jugganath back into our hearts. So with that, I think I have to stop here, although I have 10 other pastimes I can tell. So Jugganath Swami ki jai. Jai.